So we're looking currently at a picture of the Borsat West. That's right, Henry?
Yes, we are, and I think we're live, aren't we? Good evening, everybody.
Hi. Yeah, we're live, Henry. That's right. So, hi. So this is Chris Radford from Henry's Avalanche Talk, and we have with us Henry.
Good evening, everybody.
And we also have Misha Goupal from FATMAP. Hi, Misha.
Hey, good evening.
Misha, who's the founder of FATMAPs, isn't he?
One of.
One of the founders. One of the founders, okay.
And so as we put in the pre-publicity, we're going to talk about the main subject today is we're going to talk about finding routes to find safe routes, the best routes, the routes that give you the best experience, which is, as we say at HAT, that's a combination of having fun and staying safe. So it's finding good snow, and finding snow that's also safe. And I think that's always been a principle of HAT from the day you started it, isn't it, Henry?
Well, exactly, yes. I mean, I got interested in avalanches because of my love for off-piste. And then, of course, I became quite obsessed with the subject of avalanches. But that's the way it worked. It wasn't that I first was interested in avalanches and then got into off-piste. So it was a means to an end, for sure. You're right.
And this call is going to break now into three parts. We're going to get an update from Henry on current conditions. Then we're going to have Henry tell us a little bit about how he approaches finding the best routes and deciding where to go and how he knows where he is and various things like that. And then the third part of the call, we're going to get Misha to talk about the new mapping application, FATMAP, and how that can help that process, and talk about the story of how the whole thing came about, because it really looks quite exciting to us. So that's the flow of three stages. We'll be about 35-40 minutes in total. And if you want to ask questions at any time, you can put a comment on the Google Plus page, or you can press the Q&A button on the screen, and that will open up an application that allows you to type a question, and we will be able to, and we will read out the questions and answer them on the call. So, thank you very much. So, first of all, Henry, really it's good to get an update. Everybody knows there's been a lot of snow, but and there's also been a lot of wind. So, you want to talk a little bit about current conditions? We're looking here at a avalanche released yesterday on the Borsat West.
Yeah, maybe a few days before yesterday. It's just the photo was taken yesterday.
Oh, right.
But first, I'll give a little bit of context. My specific position is in the Pasquili, Val d'Isère and Tignes, in the northern French Alps in the department of Savoie. So that I'm extrapolating from here and what's happening more or less, at least in the department of Savoie, Haute-Savoie, and in general the northern French Alps, which I guess includes Savoie, Haute-Savoie, and the Isère. We're going to be talking a little bit about some parts of Switzerland that border on the northern French Alps area. So if anyone has any comments from other places in the general northern French Alps area and the bordering outlying areas, it'd be really helpful to get some feedback. But in general, since what we've been saying over the last 2-3 weeks is that a very, very weak layer of snow developed all throughout December, mainly because of the thin snowpack, and that weak layer now is under new snow. And that new snow over the last 2 weeks we've in this area of Savoie, the northern French Alps, we've got about close to 2 meters total of new snow in the last 2 weeks. And one of the first sunny days last Wednesday, actually it's been sort of sunny on and off, but one of the nice sunny days after significant amounts of snow, most of the 2 meters, was last Wednesday, and there was a number of accidentally triggered avalanches in and around the Pasquili. A few people very lucky to have lived through it, and I think one of them, the classic image is displayed in the photo that I put up on the off-piste snow report for this week. Actually starting today. It says it's starting on the 16th. But that release was on Wednesday, and it should go out as a reminder to everybody that there's still a lot of unstable snow around on the off-piste. I'd just like to thank for this photo here. This is a west-facing slope. This one here taken by Wayne Watson, and I think this one must have released on the Wednesday or the Thursday of just the last few days, just this past Wednesday or Thursday. And then the one that was triggered on my update above Tignes, where someone was actually buried, that was on Wednesday, and on a steep slope and north facing. This is more west northwestish, this particular slope. But since then, since Wednesday, where it was quite sunny, this past Wednesday it started snowing again, and I think that was true of a lot of the northern French Alps and into the bordering areas. Started snowing again on Thursday, and getting colder, and getting colder. So the snow is falling a little bit lower down than sort of 2,000 meters or so, and then the winds picked up, and blew pretty violently and pretty much destroyed much of the good quality of snow for Friday, and so we were in a situation where the snow wasn't as good, but and I think what I've found also over the years is that we talk a lot about the wind creating instability in different areas. This last few days, it seems to have, in some ways, diminished the avalanche danger, or at least made it more localized. And that seems to happen when the winds get up to over 80 or 90, or to like 100 kilometers an hour. And that's what we got from Friday, or the wee hours of the morning on Friday, and through yesterday and today. Mainly the winds coming out of the north and to northwest. So that image just flashed on the screen was a colleague, again, a Wayne Watson image, I believe, and that was you can just, if you look closely, there's a bit of a fracture line up there that another colleague of mine, Thomas, jumped on and released on that would have been on Friday, just after all the winds and things picked up. So it's not to say that things are less dangerous, it's just a little bit more localized, and in specific areas, especially sort of east-facing slopes, south-facing slopes, east to northeastish down through, southeast, and anywhere that's protected from the wind, especially, is particularly unstable. What I've found. The problem is that's where the best snow is. So the last couple of days we've been sticking on really low-angle slopes, on these protected slopes, sort of facing eastish, that have been protected from the wind. Another really important point to point out on the avalanche bulletins is that the danger ratings have gone from 4 to a 3, especially after that wind event, ironically. 4 meaning very generalized, like entire slopes at risk of going, to a 3 where there's parts of slopes that could go in general. Both at 4 and 3, one person is enough to trigger an avalanche. But we're at a 3 right now, and the point I was just leading up to is that that's above 2,200 meters, at least in this area of Savoie in the northern French Alps. And the reason for that is that thanks to the rain and the warm weather that initially created instability through the last weekend and the beginning of last week, it's thanks to that, after the initial instability, and with the cold temperatures now, it has really created a very much more stable situation from, they're saying 2,200 meters down. I'd venture even to say from 2,300 meters down below, it's much more stable. And if you look at the forecasts that Météo France have put in, they're often putting on the pictogram a greater than 2,200 to indicate that the black sides of the mountain are the ones that are more at risk. If you look at this area that we live in, though, Tarentaise, they're putting those black, and there's we put a little arrow pointer in there right next to the 2,200 meters. And the reason for that is, that, again, thanks to the rain and the warming that has helped to stabilize things below that altitude. So again, the last few days, lots of wind, not very good visibility. We've been sticking to low slope angles in the protected areas because that's where the only good snow is. Sort of seems to be below 2,300 or 400 meters and eastish facing slopes and to southeastish that have been protected from north to northwest winds that they've been howling through here since the wee hours of the morning of Friday through even today. It seems to have just settled down now.
So one of the most important things about wind, Henry, is to know where it's come from, and there's a couple of things, I guess. So if you're in the mountain and you see this gives you a clue. If you were there and you could see this, you would be able to see which side the wind was coming from and which side the snow was being blown onto. Yeah.
Gosh, from this image.
Not from the photo, but if you were there, you would know.
Oh yeah. We'd be able to figure it out right away because the first thing we're looking for is good snow to ski in, and so we want to figure out where the protected sides of the mountain are. Unfortunately, the protected sides of the mountain are also where the snow is being blown to, and if anyone's gone to our essentials talk, you'll know that it's weight that triggers avalanches. That could be people, but it could be also snow being blown from one side of the mountain to the other. And these are some recent photos right here. I believe, is this Wayne as well? Chris, did you get that?
And if you see this kind of, Henry, if you see this,
yeah.
Which way was the wind blowing?
Well, it'd be if you were blowing onto your screen, it would be blowing from that direction. So it's coming from our backs as we look at that.
Yeah.
The steep side faces the wind in these kinds of formations.
I'm just sharing a couple of tips on how you can have because paying attention to where the wind has gone from and where it's blown the snow to gives you an idea of where the slabs will be, doesn't it? Yes.
Where they're most likely to be, but I also want to just remind people that even on the windward side of the mountain, anywhere that's protected from the wind and the snow is accumulated is suspect. And it's true that after the 90, 100-kilometer-hour winds and plus the gusts of late Thursday night into Friday morning and ever since then, a lot of the exposed areas have been kind of blown. The snow's been blown off of these slopes, but there are some areas facing the wind that can be unstable. So just remind people not to let their guard down completely, even if they're on the windward side of the mountain. The snow is not very nice though on the windward side of the mountain. I can guarantee that. I made a couple sort of very good calls today, and we found that. Chris, I imagine you put this in here because we've always found this is a good example of avalanches that are triggered on a sort of danger rating of 3 context. We talk about localized avalanche instability on a danger rating of 3, as opposed to on a danger rating of 4 when it goes out through it's more or less the generalized, meaning the whole entire slope. So both these avalanches were triggered by people, and they really reflect what, at least in theory, is the kind of thing of a danger rating of 3. And we like to really emphasize that just because it's a danger rating of 3 or 2, it doesn't mean that you can, or even 1, doesn't mean that you can't trigger an avalanche. It's one of the criteria is the size of an avalanche. So the person who triggered the top one there went for about 300 or 400 meter ride in an avalanche, and just to remind people that that's if it's more localized, you can still get taken and buried in an avalanche, and that is something everyone should remember. And I'm always surprised at how people say, well, I can't believe the avalanche forecaster said it's a 2 for today because it's really unstable. Well, it could be really unstable in a 2, but they're just generally smaller avalanches. It's true there is a weight factor too, and the definition of a 2 means says that a group of people should be it should take a group of people to trigger an avalanche. 3, it should be one person, but distance triggering is less likely. 4, distance triggering is more likely, but it's even most accidents that injure and kill people are small to medium-sized avalanches that take people into holes and stuff and over cliffs. So just to remind people that that's where we are right now in danger rating of 3. Not huge avalanches out there, very few natural avalanches now, and I'm not aware of any distance triggering, but localized small pieces of slopes can come down like this right here. I just saw there was a question from David George from Pistors, Pistor, the website, where we get lots of good information. And he said to think he's in Sainte Foy, I believe right now. We seem to have similar situation to last year. Yes, that's true. With a high pressure through December, conditions for a generalized weak layer being developed through December that the fresh snow is on top of. And he said, I wondered if we can expect some big slides during the season like in Sainte Foy. And I think that certainly on some of these slopes that are being wind loaded right now, you know, a lot of these classic itineraries have not been skier compacted, which was like the case of the 5th of January on the north face of the Foglietta last year. But even worse this year, most places, I'm thinking of like in Val d'Isère, the Grand Vallon is very popular route, hasn't been skier compacted, and you know thousands of people have not skied down it yet this year. So I would say yes, we're very similar to last year, but maybe even more unstable. In fact, definitely more unstable than last year at this time right now.
So is there the possibility, Henry, of avalanches being surprisingly larger than
yes
you might expect from the danger rating,
yes.
like happened in the Sainte Foy incident? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that's a good point, Chris. And one thing that I when there's a really weak layer that's developed, like there has been this year, last year, and the year before, which I was reminded of on that when you put that interview of me with the Planet Ski people, James Cove, is that when there's a very weak layer, you can be surprised by the size of avalanches and surprised also by how weak certain areas are. So what I translate that into in very practical terms is that I always build in a very large margin for error, and I always consider that anything I think could be not only wrong but quite very wrong in terms of the size of an avalanche that could release, or also the sensitivity. So that's why I'm giving a wide berth to big slopes, and also quite very aware of sensitivity on slopes, of slopes. So I think that's yeah. Here's some others. This is right under the Tormeuse lift at the top of the Tovière. Again, I'm very much a Spaskili centric because that's where I live, and that's where images that very nicely we've been given from Wayne Watson there again from Alpine Experience.
So,
and this, I'll remind everybody too, this is an east-facing slope that is protected from the mega winds that started coming in from late Thursday night all through Friday and have been blowing like crazy all through today until this afternoon.
So what I want to we'll go back to this other picture just for the minute. What I want to ask you about now, Henry, is so we were talking about navigating today, and what are some of the things that you do when first of all, when you're in familiar terrain, to pick your route and to identify, to first of all know where you're going, and secondly, pick where you should go.
Yeah, well, when I'm in familiar terrain, I'm looking at things that can remind me that it's familiar. The only problem with familiar terrain is that if all of a sudden it becomes really foggy and you can't see, familiar terrain becomes very unfamiliar very, very quickly. So that's why, on days where there's not very good visibility, it's a good idea to have a GPS and map, compass, and altimeter too, in case you run out of batteries on your GPS.
Yeah.
So in familiar terrain, then when I can see, I'm doing my route selection according to, watching out for hazards like avalanches and other things like falls and over cliffs and things like that. When I'm going into unfamiliar terrain, I'm always looking at the contour maps, the proper maps that in France have been done by the IGN, and I think in Britain it's called the Ordnance Survey type of map. So I'm familiar, at least when I'm looking at it from on a map. I've started using Google Maps a fair amount. I'm not familiar yet with FATMAP, so I'm really interested in hearing Misha talk about that. Although I'm just got a little bit familiar when we were looking at the accident over in the Tsoumas and Verbier. So that's something I'll look at a little bit more. Especially it's quite user friendly for gradients of slopes. So that's the type of thing I'm mapping out when I'm going to go on a tour that in an area that I don't know very well. Maybe I've only gone in for a few days. I'm bringing maps and looking at maps beforehand. I'm and working with GPS and setting out the routes beforehand. And then when I'm in there, I refer to the maps and the routes and making sure that my assessment beforehand matches up with what I'm actually seeing when I'm there, which quite often is very confusing because it doesn't look anything like I imagined it would. But at least I've done the preparation in advance, and I have the actual maps and on hand when I'm in the areas that I'm just going into for the first time. And that's what GPS is so helpful with. I think you pointed this out in our broadcast discussion, Chris. It's really important to know where you are in order to figure out where you're going.
Yeah, I've done quite a lot of offshore sailing navigation, and I know the first principle in navigation, and it's sometimes easy to forget, is that you have to know where you are. Because if you don't know that, if you aren't able to look at the map and the ground and say we're here, it's extremely difficult to making decisions about where to go.
Yeah.
And that's why GPS is so amazing. And you can use it in phone applications, provided you've got the battery power to do that, and you're managing your battery power carefully. You can also use it with other more mountain-orientated GPS units like Garmin's and so forth, which use swappable AA batteries and things, so that they can keep going for hours and hours and hours. And that was my top tip for people navigating and route selection, is actually to pay attention to where you are and be able to answer the question. And it's why sailing navigators have to keep logs. They're legally required to, because it is a requirement that you know where you are, otherwise you can't move forward. And out on the mountains, I feel like it's the same thing, of always being sure that you know where you are. It's true also if you're with a guide, it's a good idea to get them to tell you, because if there's an accident or something, you need to be able to tell people where you are. So being aware of where you are or what points you're in between allows you to make decisions. And if you're not, it may be beautiful and you may be having a great time, but you won't be able to pick a line or interpret the conditions.
Yeah, and I was going to reinforce for rescues for sure. It's very, very helpful. Every rescue service that I've talked to around here, and I'm sure all ski areas are the same, the number of people they get calling in and saying that once they're asked where they are, their response after they've looked around a bit is that, well, there's a few rocks and trees and there's some snow around me, which isn't very helpful for the rescue services to come in and help you if there's an injury and you need to get evacuated.
But what we understand that FATMAP does, and is it seems to take things to a new level. It's not just GPS and a map. And so, Misha, do you want to talk a little bit about? I know we were talking the other day, and you told me a little bit about your story of how FATMAP came to be.
Well, it's funny you should say that the most important thing is knowing where you are. It was kind of the inspiration behind where we started. Was my co-founder Dave and I were on a kind of mini expedition in some mountains in Albania, on the border of Montenegro and Albania, and we had climbed the highest peak in the area, and we were just about to start ski descent. And the maps there are the maps we had were were pretty bad. I mean, we had a bit of Google Earth and some old Russian maps to go on, and well, exactly as Henry said, suddenly the weather closed in, and the route that we had been on, which was pretty familiar on the way up in the good weather, suddenly became yeah, pretty difficult to find our way down. And
Misha, can you put the microphone a little closer to your mouth?
yeah, sorry about that. Is that any better?
Yes.
I think it's like a one-sided or something. So yeah, suddenly we found ourselves completely lost, and long story short, when we got down, we started talking about how we could, how the topographic maps were great, but they hadn't really moved with the times, and they hadn't really had the benefit of a lot of technological advances that we've seen with urban mapping, like Google Maps, and has made a lot of progress. And you've got a city in your hand, and you can see where you are. Well, we wanted to kind of do the same thing for mountains, so you could see where you were at an instant in the terrain as it is in real life.
Mm-hmm. And we have a few screenshots from the application here, Misha, that indicate some of the information. So this is one of the screenshots that shows a terrain. I can see it looks like it shows a lift. It looks like it shows some routes. It's also got a load of colours, and it's got a little thing, which I guess a body, which I presume is where we are now.
Yeah, so what you're looking at, I think what you're looking at there is a map of Chamonix. Someone's at the bottom of the Aiguille de Midi lift there by the looks of things. And what you're looking at is a gradient heat map, which is one of the functions in the application. What we started thinking about is what do you want from a map as a skier? And probably the single most important piece of information you want when you're choosing where to ski is gradient. And existing topographic maps are quite slow to extract gradient, and it's fairly approximate if you're starting to guess when you're looking at the distance between the contours. So yeah, we wanted to provide a tool that allows you to A, know exactly where you are, and B, understand the terrain around you, and particularly the steepness in a lot of detail very quickly.
So the other thing that I have noticed by looking at it is the fact that you're able to get a screenshot of the area and where you are, and then look at various pieces of information here. You have this. I notice on the left here it says gradient, avalanche zones, crevasse zones, and altitude and things. So talk a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so I mean, at its heart, what we have here is basically, there's a few things, I guess, to say about what we're doing that's different. So the first thing is it's an ultra high resolution model of the terrain. So to give you an idea, this is the model you're looking at is a 2-meter model. So we have a point on the ground every 2 meters. It's roughly the equivalent to a 1 to 5,000 map. So it's an ultra high resolution map. So suddenly you can understand the terrain in great detail. And because it's 3-dimensional and it's effectively a computational map, so we can compute things like gradient, aspect, steepness, and you can immediately show graphical overlays to extract that information from the map very quickly. And on top of that, what you can see there
so I can zoom in and out on this and get very much better resolution. This is a very zoomed out shot now, isn't it?
Exactly. So you can zoom in and out. It's a complete 3D world. If you want, it's a virtual world. So when you do zoom in, I mean, you can literally see ski tracks on the ground, and you can see the different aspects within a given couloir. For instance, it really is kind of ultra high resolution.
And you could look at the map would show you that I'm here, and will tell you therefore the kind of aspect, gradient, and avalanche zone for exactly where I am right now and where I'm thinking of going.
Exactly. And on top of that, you can see there that there's obviously all the routes are depicted. So the classic, obviously the piste map, but also the classic off-piste routes are all described. So it's a map with a topo overlaid over the top.
And if I just move on here to this one here, which shows altitude, because I'm thinking about the fact that Henry keeps talking about, well, we look at the bulletin and the risk is different at different altitudes. So this is a simple bit of information that allows us to see, again, where we are and what altitude we're at, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the idea behind the map is it the product is it gives you access to the critical information you need as very quickly. So you can see at a glance if the Avalanche risk bulletin tells you that there's high risk above 2,200 meters on west-facing slopes, you can very quickly extract that information graphically.
And if I go back to this previous shot, the other thing is I noticed by looking at it, it looked to me like I would be able to also get some sense of what it would look like from this photographic representation. And again, it seemed very high resolution. You could zoom in and get an idea, sort of a visual clue as to what routes look like, as to what kind of features to look out for as you go down.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's a virtual world, and it's quite hard to kind of show in stills. But what you can do is every route you can do virtual reality fly-throughs of every route. So you could literally you start to see what it would look like as you ski it, as you'd ride the route. And each route itself is more than just a line. Every route is described in detail by local experts. So it's literally all the information you have in a topo right there in front of you.
Couple little comments here, quick, just quickly. There's some very positive comments from a couple people just saying this is really cool, this is amazing. One person asked if you're going to be adding Lagrave to FATMAP.
It's already there, so it's combined with the Les Deux Alpes map. So if you download Les Deux Alpes and Lagrave, all of the classic lines in Lagrave are there.
Okay. All right, well, there's that. And then there was a question I just want to clear up by someone asking if you can send a grid reference of FATMAP to the rescue services. But I think the best thing is to have your coordinates, and they'll take. I know most rescue services will just take your GPS coordinates and also the classic sort of longitude latitude coordinates. But is there something you could just send them, a grid reference?
So I guess our product's international, so we cover the North America and Europe at the moment. So it's difficult to obviously have a function that would be compatible with all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
What we did want to do was kind of put the information at the fingertips of people. So particularly in France, I would, and in Switzerland, often you'd be better served in the event of an accident to call the specific number for the local mountain rescue. So in France it's the PGHM, and each local PGHM has a specific number. So in each map those local numbers are programmed in. So there's an emergency function that gives you the Peace Patrol number for the map that you're in, but also the mountain rescue.
And all that's just plugged right in, huh?
It's plugged right in. It's just got a number it's just got a function that says emergency on the main menu, and it also gives you a location, so you can obviously relay that at the time.
Super.
And this you were talking about this avalanche gradient zone map as well here, which is highlighting areas where avalanches might happen.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do with this feature was really provide a way for people to make better decisions or more informed decisions. So we won't tell you what's safe or dangerous, but we will try and give you better information than you might otherwise be able to get, and give it to you more quickly. And what we've provided basically on the map, we compute 3 different bands. So we show you all the terrain that's above 30 degrees, which is typically what one would consider avalanche terrain, is shaded, and then we split that into 30 to 35, 35 to 40, and above 40 degrees. And the reason we decided to do that is because one of the decision-making frameworks that exists is the Munter reduction method, and these specific bands are mentioned in that, and on a given avalanche risk, it recommends staying below particular gradients to ensure that what you're doing is statistically safer. It doesn't make it safe, but it provides a margin of safety.
Yeah.
And we also had. Then we received today some analysis of a specific incident in Verbier that took place yesterday. Here is the Planet Ski report of a fatal accident on Saturday at 2:30 in Verbier in the Zumaz area, which is part of Verbier, and this was an avalanche which released some way above the victims, actually in a tree area. The avalanche was 200 meters wide and 200 meters long, and was obviously very, very bad. What Anna Kirkman from Zoomaz has done is to take some shots off the FATMAP application, and also identify a couple of shots of the area. So if I go back to the so this shows a wide map area of Verbier, and this incident is we're going to zoom into here where it's taken place, and this has, Misha, your gradient colours. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yeah. So
and
just by coincidence, Anna Kirkman, who runs a business called Four Valleys, Four Seasons, and is a ski fanatic, has a program called Ski Fanatics there as well for off-piste skier fanatics. She's also an ambassador for FATMAP. So this was all a bit of a coincidence. So we thought that we'd get Misha to bring us through all of this, the analysis of the the tragic accident here.
Because what she's done here is send some screenshots of zoomed out, and then zoomed in a little bit more, and then the avalanche gradient zone map of the area. What I'm now going to do, I'm going to come back to this shot in a minute, but I'm just going to go over to a picture from Google Earth of the area. So this avalanche has taken place somewhere in this area that I'm circling here, I believe, and the FATMAP version of that uses these colors, and from what we can tell, the triggering was actually somewhere down here, and the release was somewhere up in this red in the 40 degrees steepness. Did you get anything other information, Henry, from the emails or the correspondence we've had on this?
Well, yes, just that what Anna said in her email said that they were traversing it. There was a race going on, and they traversed across the piste. And so I'm thinking they might have even traversed in maybe fairly high up, or at least on some of the steep stuff, to get some nice lines that came out onto the flatter areas below. So while I definitely think that it was a distant, or it released maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 meters above them, I think they might have come in just where you can see the trees there next to where the piste is, because it looks pretty accessible.
Yeah.
And maybe along that ridge line, more or less high up there. That's only me just speculating, though. But I think it was a distant trigger, and then it looks like it must have released quite a bit higher than where they were. But I think they were still in pretty steep terrain in there.
Yeah, what's interesting is if you actually look at it zoomed out, I've got it open in our application at the moment. If you look at it, if you were to zoom out further from there, there's actually a very clear, massive avalanche path directly below that area. So that slope does look like it goes pretty often. In fact, if you zoom out, there's some kind of clear signs of where the regular avalanches go.
Okay. And so this color here, oh, I see these dark purple, Misha, they're really steep, yeah?
That's like cliff, I think, huh?
Yeah, exactly. There's probably a short cliff there or something, and so you can see where you might obviously traverse in higher up. So that you can see that it's a yellow, where it starts to yellow is about 30 degrees. Everything up to kind of red starts to be kind of extreme skiing terrain, but obviously if it's a short, it might not feel that way. And then once you get into purple, it's probably too steep to ski.
Yeah.
So this is just to summarize, what you've really helped us to visualize is actually a classic area for an avalanche to be triggered in these kinds of current conditions, all through the northern French Alps. I think it extends out and through the Valais, where they got even maybe a bit more snow than here in the French Alps, perhaps more than 2 meters in the last couple weeks. And that's a north-facing slope, so more depth or more of that sugary weak layer. North-facing slope, steep, released at what was often referred to as somewhere around the bullseye of 38 degrees or so, which is where most avalanches actually release from. They can be triggered from below, so it almost sounds very sadly like just a textbook kind of accident, and very sad.
So, so I think some of the takeouts that I've got from this that the opportunities to take the information is knowing where I am, which is the first part of deciding where I want to go. But what my takeout of FATMAP is that it adds many layers to the information about where I am, by giving us information about aspect, about altitude, about a slope angle, and therefore the kind of risk level that we might expect from that slope, and allows us to plan routes. I was also pretty excited about the topographical kind of Google Earth style photo resolution, but to a much higher resolution than Google Earth, allowing us to have a look at the route and get a kind of visual for the route, so I can see the features as I'm going down the slope, and have a visual map in my head of where we're going, as well as referring to the app as we go down. Because I mean, what are you looking out for, Henry, when you choose a slope? I mean, I'm looking at, how steep is it? Is there a way out? How scary is it? And as well as how risky is it? Are there slopes I need to pay attention to? Is there other stuff that you're looking for, Henry, when you're planning a route?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure when you say scary, there's terrain traps below. So, I'll engage in a steep slope, but one of the things I'm looking at when I'm engaging on a steep slope is well, there are islands of safety. There are other places that you can gather at and be protected if something comes down from above, and then also, if the slope does go, am I going to be almost certainly dragged into a hole or over a cliff? In that case, that might be a lot more reticent about the whole thing. But if it looks like if the whole slope went to, there's several areas that you could escape to, and also there's not any cliffs or really nasty things below. Trees. Reminded of that here. Trees can be fatal if you're taken into them, which might have been the case here. And that's another point I wanted to make about this little area here. Is that there's a very common misconception that trees make a slope stable, and it may be that some trees on a slope, when they're sparsely separated, or they're fairly separated and it's fairly sparse and spread out, they may act as a bit of an anchor. But obviously, this is a proof that that avalanches can and will release, especially in slopes where you can actually get some easy turns in and out of the trees, and then the trees offer a very nasty and dangerous, deadly obstacle at the bottom of a slope that, in my opinion, in many ways will outweigh the benefits of anchoring, especially when it's as unstable as this.
And this photo, I guess, shows that very clearly, Henry, isn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Misha, is there any other other pieces of information in FATMAP? We've covered quite a lot here, but is there anything else that we should draw people's attention to?
No, I mean, I think you've covered the main things. Of course, we're trying to make the concept behind FATMAP, I suppose, if there was one way of quickly summarizing it, is that we want people to be able to know an area like a local on day one. So the idea is it's everything you would want to know about an area when you're skiing. So it actually includes detailed information about all the marked runs, so the pistes, information about the lifts, the local restaurants, and then of course it extends to to our premium product extends to all the free ride lines, off-piste lines, and then all those mapping tools.
Yeah. So where do people go to get the application?
So it's available on the App Store and the Android Play Store at the moment. And then we should be releasing a web version that you can use in a web browser later this year.
Okay.
I have another couple questions. Is the Gresonnet, Alanya, and Champoluc, are they going to be coming out soon?
They are on the list, yeah. I think they're in production at the moment. We hope to have those out by sometime this winter in the not so distant future, in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh wow, that soon? Like not 6 months, but 6-7 weeks, huh?
We hope so. So we have about 27 areas right now, and that's roughly an even split between North America and Europe. So most of the major ski areas are covered, and those that are missing we're working on right now to try and get launched this winter. So
I think also, Misha, you do the fun stuff, don't you? With the Ski Tracks app, you do you provide the ski data that allows people to see how far they've been, how high they've been, that kind of how fast they go. Is that?
Absolutely, yeah. You can record your tracks, and actually one of the cool things is that because it's you can do the kind of 3D fly-throughs of not just the pistes and the off-piste lines that are already on the map, but you can do that of your own route.
So so there's which is more of a kind of fun reflection on what happened, isn't it, afterwards, rather than a planning tool? Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess we wanted to build something that you can that you use for planning when you're at home. So plan what you're going to do the next day. Whether that's a day out with the kids or actually going to ski some lines away from the resort, and then see where you are when you're skiing. So locate yourself and make decisions whilst you're out on the mountain, and then finally relive what you did and share that with your friends.
And you mentioned free and premium. I think it might be worth pointing out to people they can take a look for free, can't they? And
so all of our maps are available for free, but you work to get the off-piste lines and the terrain toolkit that you see and the satellite imagery. That's for a premium subscription.
Which is how much?
It's we're speaking in pounds, but it is $9.99 for a 2-week subscription, or $25.99 for a season or a year.
And is that for one resort or for all of them?
That gives you access to the whole library, so all of the resorts. Okay. Functions for everything.
Sounds I have to say sounds pretty reasonable to me. So thanks. Thank you very much, Misha, for joining us on a Sunday night to share.
Thanks for having me on.
It definitely takes on the concept of the first principle of navigation. Know where you are and know the terrain to a new level from what's possible, and we look forward to getting the chance to try it out. Now you've just launched in the last I know you've had I know some of the maps have been out for a short while, but what you told me was that now it's an official launch of these 27 areas. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. So we officially launched them on Thursday this week. So, yeah, it's so far so good, and we hope to keep adding more areas. And obviously, it's early days for us, and we love people's feedback as we build the product out.
Can you see any more questions, Henry?
No. If anyone wants to ask more questions or make some comments, we'd be all very interested. Otherwise, this whole
I think we're done.
Hangout will be recorded, and you can go back and check it out or tell your friends about it. And any questions you have, you can send us on our contact at henrysavalanchetalk.com or on Misha's website, which is
FATMAP.com.
FATMAP.com. What a surprise! Well, that was great. It was really interesting, Misha. Thanks for coming on and describing all of the features in your maps and the development and everything. And I didn't realize your official launch was just so close to this particular date. So best of luck to you, and we'll be seeing you on FATMAP and on our various different applications or our
So
various different phones and things. We'll be seeing your application.
Great.
So thank you.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have fun.
And
Be
thank
safe.
you everyone for joining us. And we'll be back. I think we'll be back next week because there's still plenty going on. So
yeah.
Thanks everyone.
Good evening, everybody, and have fun and be safe.